we're going to begin drawing our quilting designs in our blocks for this month of February. This month we made the M-dash and the mood blocks. So go ahead and print out your block outlines for each of the blocks. Print out as many as you need to. The more you draw them, the better you're going to quilt them and the more comfortable you're going to feel. I already filled out quite a few of them myself, and that just gives you really good practice. So for the M-dash block, we're going to actually be using two quilting designs that we did use last month, but we're going to use them just a little bit differently. So I don't need to actually teach you the design per se, but I am going to show you how to properly draw them into your block. The two designs we're going to be using are pebble quilting, but in this case I'm going to call it bubble quilting because these pebbles are going to be really large. And I'm also going to be using wave quilting. So these triangles here on my block are actually my background fabric, and there is a border which you can't see around the entire block. And in the black background triangles, I am going to quilt my wave. And I am actually going to stitch in the ditch around the entire triangle, and then I'm going to quilt my wave. And I'm going to be doing pretty small curves and just going at the full height of the triangle, and then back down small again, and then I can stop. Now, instead of breaking my thread at this point, I'm actually going to just stitch to the next black triangle or background triangle that is right next to it. I'm going to stitch in the ditch around the whole triangle, and then I'm going to go ahead and do my wave. Okay, and I'm going to go to my next one and do my wave. You know, stitch in the ditch, same thing, repeating. So all of these background color triangles will have this wave pattern in it. And it's pretty close, pretty tight. I mean, that's probably less than a 1/4 inch distance between each wave. I'm not going to do all of these here because that would take me forever. But next I'm going to show you what we're going to do in this diamond shape here. We're going to do these large bubble quilting design here. And I'm going to stitch in the ditch around my whole diamond shape. And then I'm going to start with a half bubble that's fairly large. And I'm going to stitch along the edge here, travel stitch, and then come back around my bubble. And from this bubble, I'm going to make another really large bubble. Okay, and I'm going to go around it twice here so I can get to the bottom. And when you're travel stitching with these, with pebble quilting, you can get travel stitch quite often and get a little bit messy with it. But with these bubbles, you really want to try and stitch directly on the stitch so that it doesn't look like it's multiple lines. It's just one single bubble. Kind of hard to do with a pen and paper. But we're going to do the next large bubble. And then right here in this gap, I'm going to go ahead and stitch along the side and do a half bubble. And you can just fill it in however you want, however much you want. And do a half bubble right there, and another half bubble right there. I'm going to go around the side, and maybe a little half bubble there, so that I fill in my entire diamond shape. So you're going to do that for each diamond shape. You can actually, depending on what colors you use for these, you can actually do like probably 2 of them, like these 2, since they meet in the center. If you did the same color, you can do those 2, and then you'll have to do these side ones separately and break your thread and start over. For the outside border, I also did the wave. I started and I made sure that I stitched in the ditch all the way around the entire block, and then with your background color you're going to do the wave and make sure you go all the way over your marked 1-inch chalk line. That'll be our cut line. And you just do the wave however far apart you want. You can do it close together, far apart, all the way around your entire block. And that's how we're going to quilt the M-dash. Now here's my example already filled completely in. And this doesn't have my borders because I don't have enough paper on the edge, but this is the M-dash design. Next we are going to draw the quilting design on the mood block. So go ahead and get your mood outline. And for this one we're going to introduce some new designs. We're going to be doing some pebble quilting, which you already know how to do, but we're also going to introduce what I'm calling the firework, and we're going to also do a weave pattern. So first let's begin with the pebble quilting. This section here and this section, I believe it's here without looking at my block, it's hard to tell, are my background fabrics. I'm going to actually pebble quilt my entire border over the white chalk line, and I'm going to pebble quilt this black background piece and this black background piece. So filling it in with different size pebble quilting, and you always want to make sure you stitch in the ditch around the shape before you start. So I've already done that, stitch in the ditch around here, and I'm going to be doing pebble quilting in my borders too. And then also I'm going to do this shape down here in the bottom. Let's say I stitch in the ditch around my shape, and then I'm going to come back and fill it with pebble quilting. This is kind of messy. I am much better at quilting on my machine than I am with the pencil and paper, but that is a good thing. So I'm going to fill this in. And then, as I said, the pebble quilting would actually go around the entire border of my block. For this middle background section, I'm doing circles still, but I'm doing kind of a chain stitch here. First, what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw one large, or I should say quilt, one large circle. When I come down to the bottom of the circle here, I am going to do one little overlapping circle. Then I'm going to come back up to the center and do one large circle. And these are interlocking. So the small circle in the center is basically joining the two and interlocking them like a chain. So I'm going to do a small circle, and then I'm going to do a larger circle. Small circle, and then a larger circle. Larger. Do that till you get to the very end of this strip. Okay, and next I'm just going to actually echo my circles with a line on the side of each. I'm doing about a 1/4 inch, maybe even less, around echoing it. This is optional, you don't have to echo it. If you don't have enough room, then you can leave this part out. So that's the center background piece. Now I'm going to do my fireworks in this piece here and this piece here. So for the fireworks, again, you're going to want to stitch in the ditch around this triangle, and then I'm going to work my way back to this point here. For this fireworks, I'm going to make the fireworks, I'm going to go up, and I'm going to come back down. I'm going to go from left to right. And I don't have to go directly on my line. This can actually be sort of messy. It looks pretty cool that way. And I'm just going to basically the line on the other side of the shape. And then if you want to fill it in with a few shorter strokes here and there, you can do so. So that is the firework. Now I'm going to do my firework up here. So let's say I stitched in the ditch around this entire shape, and I started right here at this point, and from the left to the right did my firework. And you can put as many strokes as you want. Here's some little ones. That's my firework there. Next, we are going to do a weave pattern. In order to do the weave pattern, we actually need to mark our blocks. So we'll be marking our blocks with a chalk pencil and a ruler. In this case, we're using a pen. So when we get to our actual block, I'm going to use math and divide it out perfectly. I'm going to want 6 squares, so 3 by 2 for the rectangular piece. Right now I'm kind of just doing this for sake of time by eyeballing it. Then the bottom square here that's larger, I'm going to just want to split into 4. Again, you're going to want to do the math and measure this when you actually do it on your block. So those are my different segments. So for the weave, you actually are going to attempt to do a straight stitch, free motion quilting, and you're going to start and go stitch in the ditch around the entire shape, and you're going to stitch on your markings. Then you'll go in and fill it with the weave. So I'm going to go in and I'm just going to go line, down, travel stitch, up, travel stitch, down, travel stitch, up. And I'm just going to go back and forth. And these are about a little over 1/4 inch apart. You can space them however much you want. Then I'm going to do this block here in the bottom right hand with the same direction. When I'm stitching this, I like to do it from top to bottom, or back and forth, instead of left to right is what I'm trying to say. So now I've got that. Now for this square and this square, I'm going to actually go the different direction. So I'm going to rotate my block here, and I'm going to do it the opposite direction. Still going from top to bottom though, because I rotated. So that is my weave. I can show you a little bit closer. There's my weave pattern. Now I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing. I'm going to stitch in the ditch around my whole entire rectangle, and I'm going to stitch on my chalk lines. Then I'm going to go in and fill it with my weave pattern. And I'm going to actually do this middle square here the same direction, skipping the top middle. And then this top right square. You want to alternate the weave so it actually looks like a woven pattern. Then I'm going to rotate and do it this direction. Travel stitch and do it this way. I'm going to travel stitch, and finish it off. And now my whole entire block is quilted.